This is called the Tower of Technology. Few things in our day are more challenging for families to manage than the relentless advancement of technology. That's why I find it fascinating that the final story of how God fathers humanity as a whole, before the scope narrows to the family of Abraham, is how he deals with technological progress. Humanity comes together around a new technology, the brick. They see its potential to bring humanity together and decide to build a tower to reach the heavens. But God, being a good father, investigates. He doesn't say that all technological progress is bad, but that humanity is progressing too rapidly and is getting off mission. Quote, "Behold," this is God, "they are one people, and they have all one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do, and nothing that they purpose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and there and confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech." Genesis 11, 6 and 7. He gave them a mission to fill the earth, but they replaced that mission with their own. Quote, "Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth." Genesis 11:4. Powerful technology plus the wrong mission equals a violation of God's design. We live in an age of incredible technological progress. The language barriers that have existed since the Tower of Babel are about to be overcome through technology. But is our technology serving God's mission or our own? Unless we live at the end of human history, I think God may do something to set back humanity's technological progress. We are not the authors of this story. God's purpose for the human family can be hindered, but will never be stopped until we complete the mission God has given us. And the way God keeps us on mission is by introducing friction into the system. He didn't take away our ability to make bricks, but our ability to work together at a massive scale. Humanity tends to have an inordinate obsession with gigantism. We like big things. Too often our businesses are too big, our governments are too big, our churches are too big, and all of this obsession with size makes our heads too big. When things get too big, they become disconnected from the earth. We strive to turn everything into a tower with its head in the clouds. But God likes to make things family size. He makes families to rule, and that means we need things to be small enough to be ruled by a family. Making businesses, churches, and governments small enough and connected enough to the ground keeps us from the pride of Babel. Awesome. So that's sort of the biblical interpretation. And then I always like to give one tool, one really practical way of applying what this theology is really teaching us from this part of Scripture. And this tool is how friction is the key to handling household technology. When God wanted to slow down the relentless technological advancement of humanity and get them back on mission to fill his creation, he introduced friction. He made it harder for them to scale their use of their tech by confusing their languages. We live in an age of relentless technological advancement. Every year, brand new tools are given to us to make our lives easier. Every advancement carries with it the promise of reducing friction in our lives. Messaging apps eases communication. AI is taking every digital task that took days and is doing them in seconds. And soon robots will be mass produced to relieve humanity of physical tasks we've been doing since the dawn of creation. Wonderful news, right? Well, let's slow down for a minute and consider the value of something we rarely see as a blessing: friction. Friction is the number one tool we turn to when technology is eroding our family culture. Here's an example. Every week during our family meeting, we try to find one way to improve our household. This week, I brought up that our rule against turning on the TV in our living room was getting violated. But first, here's a short history of how our family has handled just the TV in general. For the first years of our family's life, we didn't have a TV in our house, but we had one at the church where I was a youth pastor. So anytime April and I wanted to enjoy a movie night, we would get a VHS tape from the library. I would load the heavy TV VCR combo unit into my car. I'd drive it to the house, set it up, and watch the movie, then go through the whole process of taking the unit back to the church the next day. This 10-plus step process was intentional. We wanted to encourage a reading and talking culture in our home, so we increased the friction around movies and decreased the friction around connecting. As time went on, we would have seasons where we would reduce friction and have a TV in a side room, sometimes behind a cabinet, so it was out of sight, out of mind. As our kids got older, we allowed shows during special times of the week, along with special rules that linked TV watching with connection, where our kids were allowed to watch certain shows, but only with a sibling. The screen time tends to take over any family culture for one simple reason: it's just too easy. When you're tired and want to just relax, nothing is as tempting as a great show that's one button away. So I noticed this was happening too often in our family. So I asked our kids what we could do to increase the friction on turning on a show. Someone suggested we relocate the TV remote to the basement bathroom. Let's try it. We also talked about other things we could do to talk in the evening. We have a fire pit right outside the living room door, pickleball court in the backyard, a garden out front, books and crafts to entice us on different surfaces of our living room. This approach worked to reduce our dependence on relaxing around screens. A few weeks later, one of the young men who recently moved into the guys' discipleship house came over for dinner. After returning from the bathroom in the basement, he announced to everyone at the dinner table, guys, I don't know if you know this, but there's a remote control down in the basement bathroom. So one of my daughters explained to him that this was intentional, that we were working to increase the friction on tech. The next day, we learned he went home that night and rearranged several things in his space to increase friction and reduce his compulsive use of tech. Every year we spend time in Amish country, I was surprised to learn that their approach to technology wasn't to just simply reject everything after some arbitrary year in the 1800s, but instead they go through a multi-step process with every new technology. An Amish community will allow a family to try a new technology, and both that family and the community will see if it enhances the relational connections or decreases relational connections. There's amazing wisdom to this approach, because whenever a new technology is being marketed to us, we are only made aware of the benefits, while the unintended consequences are hidden or entirely unknown. So instead of running the experiment through one or two families, what we've decided to do is run the experiment through our entire culture or on an entire generation. By the time we discover the adverse effects, it's too late. It's already embedded into our practices. We've learned to depend on it. So what's a family to do? Well, two simple words: increase friction. When the Amish were introduced to the phone, many communities discovered that having it in their home was just too disruptive. So they made these phone booths on the street. That created enough friction that they can get the phone's benefits, some quick communication, while having enough friction that it didn't actually take over their households. Can you think of any technologies that are eroding your family's culture? Brainstorm as a family how to introduce friction. At the same time you are increasing friction on tech, reduce friction on the things that will enhance your family culture. Keep your hands on both dials so that as you dial some things down, so on the tech side, you're dialing other things up. When God saw technology taking over his people, he had a family meeting. He said, behold, they as one people have one language, and this is only the beginning of what they'll do, and nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down there and confuse their language. God's solution stopped their abuse of this new technology, and at the same time created smaller communities that were able to prioritize one another and get back on mission. Be sure your family is using technology. Don't let technology use you. Awesome. All right.